Hi and welcome to day two of module three. Module three is about understanding others and building stronger connections. So, the objective of this week is to use our empathy in a way where we can build stronger connections. And with this objective, is how we are proceeding through the week, and also today. And today we're talking about feeling weird versus getting lost in. And yesterday as well, we spoke about empathy and how we can remain empathetic without being consumed, what it means, the difference between absorption, consuming, being consumed by other people's emotions versus connecting and keeping empathy. So again, today we will go more in depth with how we can feel with someone without getting lost in what's happening with them. And through the session today, we'll be exploring the three types of empathy because not all empathy is healthy or sustainable. So, um, yeah, as we do, I'd like to once more welcome you to Mighty Champions Daily Live. Every day we work on ourselves. Every day we show up, and we spend this little time together to know ourselves better, know our patterns better, and work on building a more resilient, happier, uh, more more aware self. So with that, I'd like you to, if you're okay, just take a minute or two to come here with all your presence, connecting with the breath, checking in with yourself. How are you feeling today? How's your body? How's your breath? How's the mind? Without any judgment, just observing, how am I today? What's the quality of my breath, my mind, my body? So, giving yourself your complete attention. And then I'd like you to bring to mind someone you deeply care about, someone you really love, and imagine that they are emotionally distressed. Someone you deeply care about, if they are emotionally distressed. And now notice what immediately starts to happen inside your own body, your own mind. How does it start feeling? Does your body tighten? Do you start to feel a bit restless or anxious? Do you begin to mentally fix? Excessive worrying, emotionally heavy? You feel responsible for making them okay. What starts to happen? And this sort of signals to us how we react or how we respond or how we become when someone who's very dear to us is is suffering or is struggling with something. Uh, the belief often also is that caring means absorbing. If I care enough, I will get entangled into it. But we want to explore today, this distinction, that is it even possible to feel with someone, and not get lost in them? Can we do it? What does it mean? Yesterday, we explored mirror neurons, emotional contagion, and today we want to go deeper and understand the different ways in which empathy operates inside us. So with that intention, maybe setting yourself that intention that I want to work on um, understanding, and I want to better understand my tendency to do this emotionally, whether it's to rescue, to overfeel, lose myself, absorb, overcarry, whatever you've felt your tendency is when someone close to you is worried, and setting that intention. Can I understand that better? So, moving on to the three types of empathy. And before we understand that or we explore that, the the overarching, in a way, a disclaimer, or the overarching story about empathy is that it is a beautiful human capacity. It's one of the most powerful human abilities that we have. It allows us to do a lot of things, to connect with people, to comfort them, to understand people, to care, to build trust, to feel emotionally close to one another, to be of service. Because without empathy, relationships will become emotionally disconnected, and we will become extremely selfish, self centered. So, empathy is not the problem. Sensitivity is also not the problem. The problem arises when this sensitivity starts to exist or function without boundaries, awareness, or grounding. That's when we need to maybe take a step back and see for ourselves what is happening. And it's also good to understand why empathy can become exhausting. Um, because what's happening is that many empathetic people are constantly absorbing other people's emotions. They are carrying everyone's stress. They are overthinking others' emotions, feeling responsible for other people's moods, problems, struggling to emotionally detach, perhaps, feeling drained after conversations. And then, as a result of all of this, staying emotionally activated long afterward. So, so while the story is over, uh, this person's stress, anxiety is still staying with me. And then when this continues to happen over a period of time or repeatedly, eventually empathy stops feeling like connection and it starts feeling like exhaustion. We can also have, the belief, or sort of, the understanding that emotional exhaustion is love, because that's how love exists. If I am not depleting, it means I am not caring enough, or it's not proof of my deeper, support. So with that, we'll move on to understanding, learning about the three kinds of empathy. The first type being emotional empathy. Emotional empathy means feeling what another person feels. And this is the most natural form for many highly sensitive people. Feeling what another person is feeling. So if a friend is anxious, you become anxious. If someone else is crying, you immediately feel overwhelmed. Tension enters the room, your nervous system changes instantly. Now, emotional empathy can create powerful connection. because you're so deeply connected to this other life, this other person. But it comes at a cost, because without grounding, what's happening is that this emotional empathy has easily become absorption. So you're no longer witnessing emotion, you're also carrying the emotion. Now, this can happen because of a number of reasons. One is that, and we spoke a bit about it, yesterday as well. Um, we can have childhood conditioning toward caretaking. We can grow up seeing maybe our parents or caregivers or adults overextending themselves, and we learn that it's only when we do something like that is when we are caring, or when we are a good family member or a good friend. It can happen because of, say, sometimes tendency towards people pleasing. I want everyone to be happy around me. I want to get I want to be the one who's there for everyone all the time. It can happen because of emotional hypervigilance, when we don't feel as safe or as secure. We're constantly looking out for signals outside, constantly looking for any changes in moods and behaviors. So we are very sensitive to other people's emotions when we grow up around emotional unpredictability. And these are some of the reasons why some people can be highly attuned to moods. This was a question that came up yesterday. Other than mirror neurons, what is it? Why are some people more emotionally empathetic than others? So these are some reasons why we can, either through conditioning or through experiences, become more vigilant, or become more attuned, become more sensitive to other people's moods. Now, the second type of empathy is cognitive empathy, which is that you understand what someone feels without necessarily feeling it yourself. Now, this kind of empathy, to understand better, it's used by, say, therapists, by maybe spiritual leaders, by negotiators, where you are able to understand that this person is going through something, this person is feeling something. However, you're not really feeling it yourself. So you understand this person is hurting. You understand this person feels rejected. This person feels afraid. They're going through loss. It's been really hard for them. But it does not really affect your mood, your emotion. You don't lose yourself. Your center is balanced. You are where you are. You are grounded. And now, this can come across. Some people may think that this is cold. Mm, Such people, they are not able to feel what another is feeling. But it is grounded awareness. And it's really important in professions like therapy, where emotional boundaries are very important. And it's also good to understand that emotional distance is different from emotional disconnection, because when we have cognitive empathy, we can listen better. um, it it does not make us lose clarity, because there is no emotional flooding. So cognitive therapy is when you're using your your mind, uh, your cognition, to understand, to gauge, to assess, to make sense of what's happening. However, your emotion is not affected. Now, the third type of empathy is compassionate empathy. Compassionate empathy is in daily life, in our one-on-one relationships, in our relationships with friends, family, colleagues. daily interactions with people. It's the healthiest and the most sustainable form of empathy, because this empathy means that I can feel with someone, I can care deeply, and yet I can remain grounded enough to genuinely support them. Now, um, as again the analogy that if you if you see someone who's drowning and you jump in because you want to drown beside them, neither person is helped. When you have compassionate empathy, you can extend your hand from solid ground, and that's how you can help the other person without drowning yourself. So you remain caring, you remain connected, compassionate, you remain emotionally open, but you do not abandon yourself in the process. Now, when we are able to, we see that a lot with our own experiences, and sometimes even when we observe other people, that when we use emotional empathy, we are actually sometimes not even helping the other person, because we don't have the clarity sometimes that's needed in order to be there for someone, or to take charge of situations, or to do what's right in that time or in that situation. So when you're grounded, you not only feel safer emotionally, but you're also a better friend, a better family member. You're also able to do more. Um, and and we've seen, like, when we are around somebody who's calm, just that calm presence is healing. And if we are talking about mirror neurons, and we spoke about this yesterday, that our neurons tend to catch the other person's mm, mood, and then we co-regulate. So if we are calm, we can help the other person to regulate better. So with this emotional stability, we can support our relationships, because when we want to rescue someone, it often comes from anxiety. um, and that's the difference between helping and over functioning. Now, how do you know when you are absorbing? How do you know if what the place you're acting from is either emotional empathy, um, or it's compassionate empathy? So signs of absorbing are, you could feel emotionally exhausted afterward. You could be replaying conversations constantly. There is inability to emotionally return to yourself, anxiety after supporting others, feeling emotionally responsible, and carrying emotions for hours or days. So, uh, a good question to ask yourself is that, after, say, emotionally intense interactions with people you really care about or people you really love, how long does it take for you to return to yourself? How long does it take for you to return to yourself? And the belief that we can reframe to get to compassionate empathy is first changing the belief that to love means to sacrifice myself emotionally. You can um, you can tell yourself that I do not become more loving by disappearing inside other people's emotions. I become more capable of love when I remain grounded enough to stay present. So, yeah, a good question also for self inquiry could be, which type of empathy do you think you use most often? Which type of empathy do you think you use most often? what happens to your nervous system after emotionally intense interactions? What happens to you? Because empathy is a gift, depending on how we use it, because empathy without grounding can become depletion. So you are allowed to care deeply while still remaining connected to yourself. So, with that, we'll do a small practice, and then later, if there's any question you have or anything you want to share, we'll have time for that. So, um, so yeah, just starting the practice with sitting straight back, tall but not stiff. If it feels okay, you can close your eyes, else you can gently lower them. And then moving attention from top of the head to soles of the feet and scanning the body to see how your body feels today. Noticing the breath. And if it feels okay, then deepening the breath just a bit. And see if you can connect to the sound of your breath. Hear yourself breathing. If you can connect to the sound of your heartbeat, connecting to your heart. How do you feel today? And then checking, is that emotion mine, or am I carrying it from someone? That emotion mine? And if not, you can return that emotion, send it outside of you. And you can place one hand on the heart if that feels comfortable. And silently repeating within yourself, I can care without losing myself. I can care without losing myself. I can remain compassionate and grounded. I can remain compassionate and grounded. I am allowed to return to myself. I am allowed to return to myself. And in yoga, they say that our first duty is towards the self. So reminding yourself, my first duty is towards myself. And with that, extending gratitude to your body, your breath, your mind, your heart, and trusting yourself to be there for yourself and for others. It doesn't have to be either or. Bringing gentle movement to toes and fingers, giving yourself a stretch, and then opening your eyes. So that was our session today on how we can feel without losing ourselves. If any questions, anything you want to share, you can ask. We do have one question, which is what is the sign of cognitive empathy? Yeah, so cognitive empathy is when we can understand what another person is feeling, thinking, experiencing, while still remaining grounded ourselves. So, how do we know if if we are feeling cognitively empathetic? Now, one, I would say that we can understand emotions without being overwhelmed by them. So, we don't feel emotionally flooded or consumed. So we understand why they feel like that. However, it does not take over our day or our mood. We can stay calm during emotional conversations. So when someone is really upset, um, we can be present. Our own nervous system can stay regulated and we can think clearly. So if we are able to think clearly, which also will help the other person feel safer, it means that we are more um, cognitively empathetic. Then we can listen deeply instead of reacting immediately. So we're not waiting for the other person, say, to finish talking so we can fix their issue, we can rescue them. We are not panicking. We are just curious to understand what are they really feeling, what might be happening beneath these reactions. So we come from a place where we really, really want to understand that person. We really want to get to know them well. We can see multiple perspectives. It allows us flexibility. We we can support without over functioning, without feeling like we are responsible for their well-being. It completely depends on us. If we have not been able to help them, we've failed. So we help thoughtfully rather than compulsively without the intention to rescue them. And we can hold emotional space without making it about ourselves. Someone else's pain or suffering does not instantly become my guilt, my anxiety, my responsibility. So so rather than, I am more, then I am more solving my experience because I am feeling so much pain rather than really being there for them. So yeah, these are some of the signs of cognitive empathy. And we have another question which says, how do we move from cognitive empathy to compassionate empathy in our daily lives or with our close family or friends? How do we move from cognitive empathy to compassionate empathy? Now, um, compassionate empathy is really the balance between, say, an open heart and a grounded nervous system. So I do care deeply. And um, and one of the distinctions between, say, cognitive and compassionate empathy is that there's a shift from feeling as to feeling with. So then I am not I'm anxious because they are anxious would be would shift, and it can become, I can stay beside their anxiety without being consumed by it. So compassionate empathy really requires you to be merged in that experience more than, say, cognitive empathy would allow you to, because in cognitive empathy there is more of a distance uh, between between you and that person. So usually you would say that in daily life, when we are in one-on-one relationships, we don't usually exhibit cognitive therapy and empathy because there is more attachment, and wherever there is attachment, it's bound to get into the second category. For cognitive empathy to sustain, there has to be a level of detachment with that person, and which is why, say, therapists or leaders are able to maintain that because there is a degree of separation. Um, there is more warmth. Perhaps, when we are working from a place of compassionate empathy. So maybe I would say there is more presence. There is more warmth. We are shifting from analysis to holding more space. Um, uh, so it's not like, we are only witnessing. We are accompanying as well. Is how we can move from compassionate from cognitive to compassionate. I hope that answered that. Compassionate empathy, we are more conscious of who we truly are. We are not thoughts and feelings, but pure awareness. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Compassionate empathy, we are more conscious of who we truly are. We are not thoughts and feelings, but pure awareness. Yeah, thanks for saying that. That's beautifully said. Um, so, yeah, with that, we come to the end of the session today. Thank you so much for joining. Um, we have tomorrow, which which will continue on the same theme of understanding others and building better connections. So, see you all tomorrow. Thanks for being here, and take care.